Hello, everyone. I had to push this live back a little bit, and I apologize for that for anyone who's been waiting. Um, I'm very, a little bit more nervous than I thought I was going to be, but I'm going to do the intro really quickly, and then I will be right back. We can't forget the intro. We got to do the intro. I will always. Hi, my beautiful people. Thank you so much for being here. The intro is important. Seriously, though. I love the intro. Thank you, Boston. I got to do a better one day. Truth teller. Hi, beautiful. How are you? I hope you guys are all doing well, and I hope you had a really good Saturday. So I'm really nervous about this live. And I never get nervous. Not nervous, but um, people tend to judge you for things and ridicule you and pick you apart for for places that they know are gonna hurt you the most, And um, we were supposed to do the um, live about the crime rise for African American transgender women, and it is so bad, you guys. But the reason why I didn't do that live today is because I'm not ready for it yet. It's a very emotional subject, and every time I talk about it, and I'm still diving deep and doing research, every time I talk about it, I start crying. Like, I'll practice, and it's just hard. And then also, I just want to be thorough and give you guys um, all of the facts and information and just do right by this amazing woman. So we will be talking about that either, if not tomorrow, the next day. But I didn't just want to cancel the live because Saturdays is usually my day. My fiance is off work, so we're out. We're at the mall. Then where did we go today? We went to the mall. We went to a new store. Then we went to another store. We just go out and just have fun. And I didn't want to cancel a live totally. So I was talking to my fiance, and this is a subject that I wanted to talk about. I didn't want to just come on here and shoot the shit or whatever you want to call it. I wanted this live to have meaning, um, and most importantly, help somebody. I'm willing to put myself out there and be vulnerable if it's going to help at least one person. Um, so we're going to talk about this, and then I'm also going to open up the panel for anyone else if they do want to share their story. If you don't, I completely understand, and in no way, shape, or form am I putting any pressure on anybody. I just some people just don't want to share their story, so that would be totally up to you. I'm gonna start this off on a happy note. And I'm gonna show you guys a makeup haul I did. That'll get me going. That'll get me a little bit more relaxed, because makeup is like so therapeutic to me. And I also have an announcement to make towards the end of this live. Sorry if I missed anybody. Hey, Boston. Hey, Goose. How are you? Thank you guys for being here. Hey, Amanda Zananda. I know you were here earlier. I'm sorry I missed you. Hey, Carrie. How are you, beautiful? Hey, Angela. Hey. I hope you guys are having a great Saturday. I had a really good Saturday. Yeah. This is going to be a very long live, though. But hold on one second. I'm going to come on camera and show you guys what I got. That'll help me relax a little bit more, okay? Because makeup, that's my jam. That's my happy place. Okay, hold on. Let me get it ready. So, what everybody do today? Hey, Amanda Zananda, thank you for being here, sweetie. My Saturday was boring and lazy, haha. But I'm glad you had a great day with the family. I did. It's always nice. Like, I literally don't go on social media or anything when we're out. And, well, my fiance doesn't really care for social media anyway. He has an Instagram, but he made that for our little guy because our little guy knew how to play drums at like the age of 2. So he made an Instagram for him, but he doesn't really care for it. I was telling him today he needs to go on social media more, and he was just like, nah, I'm good. And then he said, what did he say? I can't even remember. Do you know what IG and Facebook stands for? And I said, what? And he said FBI. He's a conspiracy theorist, you guys. But it means a lot to me that you guys are all here. Sorry, guys. Just a sec. I can't type for a few minutes. I'm not trying to ignore anyone. I'm listening, but can't chat for like 5 or so minutes. I'll be back in chat in a second. Love y'all. Oh, thank you, Amanda. Love you too, girl. Okay. So let's do this makeup haul. Let's do this because I need to relax, okay? So, okay. Let me show you the first thing I got. Okay. I got the best setting powder ever. This is the Laura Mercier translucent setting powder. If you're looking for a good setting powder, brightening, like a literally Instagram filter, this is where it's at. It's expensive, but it lasts for a really, it probably will last you about 3 to 4 months. This is the best translucent setting powder ever, and it's very brightening for the under eyes. Bring you guys a little bit closer. Gorgeous. I love the brown hair color, by the way. Thank you so much. Thank you, Goose. Miss you, girl. I haven't seen you in a while. Okay. So the next 2 things that I got, and I just got it because I like the packaging, but when I opened it, I was even more pleasantly happy. This is by Makeup Revolution. These were $14.99, and I got these at Target. Makeup Revolution is now in Target. Makeup Revolution is very, very affordable. So this is the Batman palette. Isn't that cute? It's a little mini palette. I love the simplicity of it, and it does have a mirror, and this is the first one. I like all these shades. Aren't they pretty? So, yeah, only $14.99. And hey, 7 Erica America, how are you? I like your name. Welcome. Okay, so the next one, I like the packaging because it's Suicide Squad. And I love that movie. So, no, it's not. Never mind. It's the damn Joker. And I love the Joker, too. I'm obsessed with the Joker. So, this is what it looks like. And I'm pretty sure these are new by Makeup Revolution. And look at the colors. Aren't they pretty? More summery, but I'll make it work. And I will use this for you guys, too. Okay. The next thing that I am so excited about, you guys, like, Oh my goodness. Okay, so if anybody knows anything about makeup, they will know that my favorite makeup palette ever made, and this was made in 2000, I don't know, 2016 maybe. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills collab with Nicole Guerrero. This is my favorite highlighting palette ever. Okay. This is so bomb. It is so blinding. Like, literally, I put this highlighter on, and in real life, you need some sunglasses, okay? Because that's how blinding this highlighting palette is. It's my favorite highlighting palette ever, but it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's mine. And I've had this palette for since 2015 or 16. And these are the two colors that I use the most. This is Glow Getter, and this is 143. That's where Nicole Guerrero is from. I think it's her zip code or something. And I do use these colors. You know, it's a little bit of colors for everybody. Like, this highlighting palette is so freaking blinding. But and it was limited edition. They actually brought it back like a year ago, and I should have gotten it. But no, I was stupid and I did not get it. So I'm like so mad that I didn't get it when they brought it back, like not even a year ago. It was like maybe 6 months ago. And these are my two favorite colors that I'm running out of, unfortunately. And I have never had a highlighting palette as good as this one. It's my favorite highlighting palette ever. I hope they bring it back again. But I found a substitute. See, look how blinding this highlighting palette. I mean, it's so pigmented, but if you don't like a very aggressive highlighter, then you won't like that highlighting palette. But this is a highlighter. When I was at the mall, I just decided to go and look at the Estee Lauder thing. And this is their Bronze Goddess highlighting powder. Okay. This is what it looks like. It's expensive. Yes. But it is like pretty much, I can't say it's a dupe because this highlighter is just as much as this. And this is a palette. This is just one highlighter, but Estee Lauder is expensive and everybody knows that. But the color of this, what was that called? Heat Wave. This is the shade. I'm going to get all the shades because they're all gorgeous. And this literally looks like a freaking gold bar. It's so beautiful. I could not pass it up. It is gorgeous, you guys. Look at that. It is so gorgeous. So I feel like this is a good substitute. Better when I run out of these two colors officially for good. This will substitute it, and I'm really excited because it came with a gift. I'll show you guys the gift and then we'll be done. By the way, I got this translucent setting powder at Sephora. Okay, so this is the gift it came with. Isn't this a cute bag? Look at how cute this is. And it comes with these things. So this is their Resilient Multi-Filler sample of that. Then I got a mini Sumptuous Extreme Lash Multiplying Volume Mascara, a mini one of that. I got their lip liner, and I can't see what the name of that color is. Lip liner. And I heard that they have really good skin care products, and this is all I need, okay? So if I end up liking their skincare products, I'm screwed because this is their Advanced Night Repair. I can't wait to try that tonight because if I like it, then I'm going to have to go pick it up. And this is their why is it two of the same? Okay, so this is, what's this one? Well, this is the same thing, the Resilient Multi Effect And this is for lifting your face or getting rid of wrinkles, whatever. And then that's it. And then also I got a lipstick. And it's pink, like a mauve color. It's cute. I have it on now. And I like it. And then also what I got at Sephora is the Believe Beauty Perfect Strokes Universal Volumizing Mascara. I heard that this mascara is really good, so I wanted to try it. I'll let you guys know. I probably will do a tutorial, but I will announce that at the end of the live. Okay. That's it. Is that it? Yep, that's it. I love makeup, you guys. I'm just obsessed with makeup. I can't help it. Okay, let me read some of these comments before we get started, because I don't want to keep you guys too long. Hey, Steph, TXMA, how are you? Thank you so much for being here. I know it's late. Check Poshmark for things. A lot of times people get stuff they don't end up using. I definitely will, Goose. Yeah, it's discontinued. My favorite highlighting palette of all time. It's, of course. Do you have a P.O. box that we could send you stuff? I have a AB palette I won't ever use. What's the name of the palette, Goose? I want to send you. It has a lot of oranges and brighter colors, but I know they won't look good on me. Well, it could look good on you, Goose. But if you don't like that shade, I completely understand. But I don't have a P.O. box, but I can definitely send you my address. It's no big deal. Okay, I think I got everyone. I forgot anyone to say hello. So just let me know. Swear I was trying to say hi to everyone. Thank you, Amanda Zananda. Girl, I'm so glad you're doing this live. You know, my ass been waiting on this. I always love learning about makeup and hair because I suck at it. Doing this to you helps me with my confidence. Thank you. You're so welcome. Yes, I'm going to announce something special towards the end of the live. Yep, I love me some makeup, y'all. It's just, oh my gosh, that's awesome, Goose. Yeah, I will definitely send you my address. Seriously. You look so good in bright colors, especially purple and pink. Just my opinion. Thank you, sweetie. Great haul. Yeah, I'm very happy for now. I'm always going to be doing makeup hauls. Okay. So, the reason why I chose to talk about this is because it's something that I've never talked about. The reason why I've never talked about it, because obviously it's a sensitive subject and people judge. People do judge and people hold things over your head, you know, and it's just another thing that somebody's going to hold over my head. And that's okay. It is what it is. I am not perfect. Definitely made some mistakes in life. And I just wanted this live to have meaning. I didn't want to just come on here and talk about drama or this or that. I actually wanted to come on here and talk about something that would actually help someone. So, first of all, I want to tell you guys that I want to give you a trigger warning, because if talking about addiction triggers you in any way, shape, or form, then you might want to click out of this video and go watch another one of my lives or videos, whatever. There's plenty of good ones on there. I just don't want to trigger anyone or get anyone upset. This is going to be an uplifting and positive video, but my story isn't, you know, I don't want to say it's sad, but thank you so much, Boston. I don't want to say my story is sad, but it's just a story that I like to share with you guys. Because nobody's perfect and we all make mistakes. And I think everyone has suffered with addiction in some way, shape, or form. If it's not you, yourself, a family member, a friend, you know, someone close to you, we've all been touched by addiction in some way. So that's why I wanted to talk about this tonight. I think it's the perfect time to do it. You always keep it well and you're always level-headed, and you see all signs and points of everything, and always try to keep it classy and fair. And I appreciate and commend you because you have given me strength. Oh, thank you so much, Amanda. That means so much to me. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Okay, so I want to first go over with you guys a little bit of statistics. And the reason why is because that's important. Addiction is a disease. A lot of people don't believe it's a disease. I have gotten in many arguments with people who don't believe it's a disease. It is a mental disease. And to be honest with you, it's something that you really don't have any control over. You can lose control very quickly. So I want to go over a little bit of statistics with you guys prior to telling you guys my story, just to give you an idea how serious addiction is here in America.
Oh my gosh, are you live?
Say hi.
Hi. So they were playing and slam dunk.
You gonna slam dunk. He loves he don't care about John Cena no more, you guys. He loves LeBron James. He's obsessed with LeBron James now. That's his favorite. Space Jams too. And
I happy now.
Yes, he's very happy.
Sub to my channel now.
All right.
Sub.
That's not nice. That's not a nice way to tell people that. It's just not. Okay, well, say it in a nice way.
Bye. Please sub to my channel.
Okay, I'll make sure everyone does.
Okay. For the lightest.
Here, okay.
Bye. The chat.
No, don't worry. I got this. All right, go on. Say bye-bye.
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 Bye.
Okay.
Night-night.
Night-night. Okay, come on. Go. Thank you. Okay. They just wanted to say hi. Okay. Okay, so I want to go over a little bit of facts with you. Thank you, guys. Oh my gosh, he still loves John Cena, don't get me wrong, but he is obsessed with LeBron James. Every day, it's like he doesn't go anywhere without his LeBron James toy. It used to be John Cena, but LeBron James took over. Tia, you're so blessed to have such an amazing kiddos. Thank you so much, Boston. I appreciate you for saying that. What did I miss that Amanda said? I didn't see. Thank you, Amanda. I am 1 year clean from DOC. You have support. Tia, addiction is far more common than some realize. Thank you so much, Steph, for sharing that with us. I am going to open up the panel to anyone who wants to share their story. So if you're still awake, it's probably will be in the next 20, 30 minutes. So I want to go over some statistics with you guys real quick. Okay. So my man right there. Okay. So statistics on addiction in America. Whether it's a problem with alcohol, opioids, cocaine, or any other substance, addiction kills thousands of Americans every year and impacts millions of lives. Addiction is a mental disorder which compels someone to repeatedly use substances or engage in behaviors even though they have harmful consequences. Addictions destroy marriages, friendships, and careers, and threaten a person's threaten a person's basic health and safety. Almost 21 million Americans have at least one addiction, yet only 10% of them receive treatment. Drug overdose deaths have more than tripled since 1990. From 1999 to 2017, more than 700,000 Americans passed from overdosing on a drug. Alcohol and drug addiction costs the U.S. economy over $600 billion every year. In 2017, 34.2 million Americans, I don't want to say this word, 34.2 million Americans self-harmed, committed DUI, to 21.4 million under the influence of alcohol, and 12.8 million under the influence of narcotics. About 20% of Americans who have depression or an anxiety disorder also have a substance use disorder. More than 90% of people who have an addiction started to drink alcohol or use before they were 18 years of age. Americans between the ages of 18 and 25 are most likely to use addictive drugs. Statistics on alcohol addiction and abuse. Alcohol is the most widely abused substance in the United States, yet alcoholism is often left untreated. Alcohol addiction is detrimental to a person's physical, mental, and social well-being. Every year worldwide, alcohol is the cause of 5.3% of deaths, or 1 in every 20. On average, 30 Americans die every day in an alcohol-related car accident, and 6 Americans die every day from alcohol poisoning. About 88,000 people die as a result of alcohol every year in the United States. About 6% of American adults, about 15 million, have an alcohol use disorder, but only about 7% of Americans who are addicted to alcohol ever receive treatment. Men between the ages of 18 and 25 are most likely to binge drink and become alcoholics. In 2017, approximately 2.3 million Americans between the ages of 12 and 17, and 2.4 million Americans between the ages of 18 and 25 started to drink alcohol. In 2018, a historically low percentage of American high school students reported drinking alcohol. Only 18% of 10th graders and 30% of 12th graders admitted to drinking underage in 2018, compared to 25% of 10th graders and 39% of 12th graders in 2013. Okay. So the last one that I do want to cover and show the statistics on, there's a statistics on a lot of things here, you guys, but I do want to talk about the statistics of opioids, because I believe that it's definitely something I feel like started it all, in my opinion. There's doctors that were giving, writing scripts out for opioids like crazy, Statistics on opioid addiction and abuse. Opioids are a class of drugs which block sensations of pain and cause euphoria. They are dangerous because they pose very high risk for addiction and overdose. Opioids are an ingredient in many pain-relieving medications since they are controlled substances. Drug traffickers also sell them illegally. Opioids, both illegal and prescribed, has caused a surge of deaths in the United States in the past 2 decades. About 130 Americans die each day from an opioid overdose. To me, that is crazy. Okay. It just is. The statistics here are just, it's crazy. In 2017 alone, 47,600 fatal overdoses occurred in America, which involved at least one opioid. In 2017, doctors issued, oh my gosh, literally 1,218,000, wow, opioid prescriptions, a slight decline from 200 million opioid prescriptions, which they issued every year from 2006 to 2016. Since 1999, the sale of opioid painkillers has skyrocketed by 300%. About 20% to 30% of people who take prescription opioids misuse them. 2 million Americans misused prescription opioids for the first time in 2017. About 10% of people who misuse prescription opioids become addicted to opioids. Approximately 2.1 million Americans have an opioid use disorder. About 5% of people with an opioid use disorder will try heroin. Thank you, Truth Teller. You're so sweet. So now that's going to bring me just to talk to you guys a little bit about my story, because my story involved opioids. I can never say it right. So growing up, my mother worked 2 jobs. Hey, Tara Lee. While I've never been an addict, I've been with an addict for 10 years. Only wish I knew then what I know now. He needed more support and help than I knew how to help. And that's understandable, Tara Lee. I completely understand what you're saying. It's a very hard situation to be in. Like I just said, we've all suffered from it, either ourselves or we suffer from it from, people around us, family members, friends, people we love and care about. Every single person in this world has been touched by addiction, some way, shape, or form. And my heart goes out to you, but you can only do what you can. There's so much research, now when it comes to addiction, and there's a lot of stuff that we're learning every single day when it comes to addiction. So you can only do the best you can, Amanda, and that's good enough, sweetie. Okay? Just know that. Let's see if I'm trying to find the comments. I'm sorry. Why am I saying Amanda? Tara. I'm sorry, Tara. But you can only do the best you can in the situation that you're in. So, as long as you were there, you did the best. That's all I can say. Don't ever blame yourself, because as addiction is hard, especially watching a family member go through that. It is hard. It is. So if I don't read any of the comments, it's just because I'm telling my story. I will come back and read it. I appreciate you guys all staying on topic. You guys are amazing. Thank you for being here. I love you guys. So growing up, I have 2 brothers. One of them took a wrong path. The other one is probably one of the most successful men that I know. He's very successful. He has a successful job. He's very good with money, and he's just very successful in his life. And sometimes things happen that way. Me, I was always in the middle, but my 2 older brothers, my oldest brother is the one that took the wrong path, and my other brother, he is the middle child. I'm the baby. When I was growing up, My mom worked a lot. She was a single mom. I didn't know my dad very much. All I knew is that he was Indian, very much into his, culture. I think he was a medicine man too, if I'm not mistaken. But that's really all I know about my dad. And I was okay with it just being my mother and myself. My mom um, worked very hard to give me the best life she could, which what um, a lot of people in my family didn't understand is that my mother had two boys. They were grown. My brothers were 23 and 17 when they left. My brother, the successful brother, he went to the service. And then my other brother, he just took some wrong paths. But the great thing is he's doing really good now. He took some wrong paths in life. But they were moved out. And my mother, I was her miracle baby. My mother got pregnant at the age of 43 or 44, if I'm not mistaken. Did she look it? No. But she had me at a very, you know, middle aged, and she wanted her little girl, and she got her little girl. Unfortunately, she didn't have help. She was a single mom, and my mom worked her ass off to provide a good life for me. And she was a nurse. She worked with the mentally challenged, and she loved her job, but she worked a lot. And sometimes I would go to my brother's house, who lived here, not the brother who moved away and went to the service. I would go to my brother's house and play with my nieces and nephews. Sometimes my aunt would babysit me. Different people would babysit me. And I was very, very spoiled as a child. I'm not going to lie, because it was just me and my mom. My mother was all I knew. She was my bestest friend in the whole wide world. She was my other half. So I never realized as a child sometimes how hard it was to be away from her, because sometimes I could barely see my mom because she worked so hard, And growing up, I never really knew what was going on. Hey, Melissa. I never really knew what was going on, but I heard what was going on. And as I got older, I was a witness to what was going on. Addiction is definitely something that runs in my family. My brother, here, he has 5 amazingly beautiful kids. All of them are successful, and it's amazing. Their mother is amazing, but my brother has made some mistakes. And I always remember my mother getting my brother out of trouble a lot, and having family members come to our house and tell my mother. Like, I remember one time I listened to a conversation where my uncle was telling my mom that my brother was literally like at a bus station begging people for money. So long story short, somewhere in my brother's path, he lost himself, and he became addicted to, not going to tell his story fully, but he developed an addiction. And watching my mother go through that was horrible. Not only did my brother suffer from addiction, but he just lived a lifestyle that had my mother doing a lot of things for my brother, and as a single mom, that was hard, but she, that was her baby too. So she never really looked at it the way that it was. My mother was definitely someone who, I don't think she knew that she was enabling him, at that time. It was a long time ago, but she was always giving my brother money, always bailing my brother out of, jail. My brother was in prison for almost 20 years. My brother has been shot 9 times. He is an amazing man. He has got his life together. He is a success story. but he's been through a lot. And watching my mother go through that was horrible. I remember, and this isn't when I got much older, I remember my brother had called in the middle of the night, and I think I was like 14 years old at this time. And my brother was like, Tia, this is the address that I'm at. In the middle of the night, it was like 3, 4 in the morning. He's like, Tia, this is where I'm at. If anything happens to me, I want you to know this is where I'm at. And he hung up. So imagine I got up, panicked, went and woke my mother up. I'm like, Mom, my brother just called and he said, this is where he's at. If anything happens to him, this is where he's at. And of course, my mother, I've just watched my mother endure so much, and it was so hard on her, But eventually, my brother got himself together, I remember as a little girl always being disappointed. Not my mother, but, always being disappointed, mostly like when it came to sometimes family members, because a lot of my family members didn't like how my mother spoiled me. So, which is understandable to a certain extent, like I was my mother's baby. So, of course, her only little girl. So, of course, she was going to do those things. And a lot of people in my family didn't like that my mother did that. However, I do wish that my mother would have been a little bit tougher on me, because had she been a little bit tougher on me, maybe it wouldn't have been so hard on me as far as functioning when I lost her, But growing up, I think realizing it pretty much started when I was about 14. Disappointment was just something that I became used to, and most of that disappointment came from friends, people that I thought were friends. And a really devastating time for me is when someone who was like literally my sister, I thought, literally just betrayed me. And she was literally my bestest friend in the whole wide world. And one day she just flipped. She didn't want anything to do with me. I had found out that she was plotting against me. She was scheming against me. She was just doing these horrible things. And I ended up finding all those things out. All I'm saying is that as I got older, I feel like disappointment was always a trigger for me. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm very protective of myself when it comes to people that I call friends, because I feel like that was the one thing that triggered me. It's so hard to find a loyal friend. It really is. And if you have one, you are fortunate. Just know that. Friends always meant a lot to me. I always, when I was younger, wanted friends. But it was hard because a majority of the friends that I met in my life always had some kind of ulterior motive, and it was hurtful, When I was 15, my mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Probably one of the most memorable moments of my life, because I just remember not understanding. I'm like, what? I remember my mom sitting me down and my stepdad. And, my mom told me, she's like, Tia, and my stepdad was like trying to explain to me, your mom only has 3 more months to live. And imagine being 15 hearing that. I literally lost it, you guys. I'll never forget that day. I'm like, and I remember storming upstairs, flipping out and throwing things all across the room. And my stepdad came upstairs and said, because I told him, he's like, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And my stepdad looked at me and I said, Dad, if my mom dies, I remember saying, I will self-harm myself. I do not want to live anymore, And then my dad flipped out, you know. He's like, you don't understand. The only person she's worried about right now is you. Please don't say this, blah, 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 blah. But it was the most devastating moment of my life at that time. I was only 15 years old. So, and at that time, you guys have to understand that I was going through the bullying, you know, in high school. And that's when I had lost somebody that I thought was my best friend, you know. That's why I'm always constantly watching things around me. Thank God my babe is home. He's taking care of them out there. Um, but that's why I'm always very much watching people, because loyalty is just a rare thing, you know. And when you find it, hold on to it. So I was going through the bullying. My mother didn't know about it at that time, though. And then I just find out that my mother only had 3 months to live. Thank God she had gotten a second opinion, and she ended up living 16 years. So that's a success story. And I will talk about that another day. But I remember as a teenager when my mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and she got a second opinion, because the first doctor told her you only have 3 months to live. The second doctor told her, no, it doesn't have to be this way. Either if you have 3 months to live if you don't want to fight, but if you want to fight, that's not going to be the case. And my mother fought. She started taking chemo, and growing up watching that was really, really tough. I'll never forget the first day my mother took chemo. I was always usually by my side when my mom took chemo, but I never understood how serious it was, if that makes any sense. I never understood how serious it was because I was so young, 15, 16, you know, 17. So my mom took chemo off and on for 16 years. But as a teenager, watching your mother go through that kind of pain, chemo ain't no joke, you guys. It's just not. It is very, very hard to watch somebody go through that type of pain. So I just never realized how important it was, you know, how serious it was. And watching it was hard. So as I got older, because remember, my mom took chemo off and on. The first time she took her first round of chemo, she did it for 6 months or something like that, maybe a little bit less than that. And then the cancer was undetectable. Then it came back on her. When the cancer came back on my mother, I was 16, and then she ended up going, you know, for like a year cancer free. Then it would come back on her again. It's unfortunate, but that's the problem with ovarian cancer. It's a very, very complicated type of cancer. So as I got older, watching that affected me, and in more ways than one. And I remember when I got pregnant, and I was only 16, 17 maybe, and became an adult, you know, like I was forced to grow up. Thank you so much, Rose Gold. I appreciate you so much. Thank you, beautiful. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. Thank you. It really did affect me to watch my mother go through that kind of thing. And after I had my firstborn, I lived with my mother until I was almost 25, 26. So I lived with my mother for a long time. I never wanted to leave her side. And she was literally always taking chemo. However, I remember the first day that I decided to do whatever I could to take away the pain of watching her suffer. So, my mom gave me her scripts because she was taking chemo at the time. And when you are taking chemo, you suffer from pain, and the doctor is going to prescribe you some painkillers. And, when you are a cancer patient, they're not stingy with that. Like, whatever it is that my mother wanted, that the doctor would give it to her. The thing is that my mother hated pills. She hated them. But I remember my mom handing me her script, and it was the strongest Vicodin, I think. I think it was just the strongest kind of Vicodin. And I went to go get it filled. And there's like 200 of them in two different bottles. I'm like, nah, I don't think so. And then we got home, and I remember I just literally was like, I can't take this anymore. I remember the feeling, and I'm like, Mom, I'm having cramps really bad. Can you like just give me? And my mom's like, sure, because she wasn't thinking anything of that. My mother wasn't thinking of that. She gave me half of it, and she's like, you'll be okay. Because I used to get really bad cramps. I still do now. And she's like, here, you can take half of it. So I took half of it. And let me tell you guys, I'm not going to go too much into details about the feeling, but the feeling was numb. It was very numb. And I just remember liking that feeling of being numb to everything that was going on around me. So once she gave me half of that, I started, because my mother never took them, to a point where they would expire. Okay. They would literally expire. And she only took them when she really, really needed them. She never took them like that. So I would start sneaking them. And it got to a point where she's getting unlimited supplies of this. And I'm seeing this right in front of me. And when she gave me that half that one day, from that day forward, that is when my addiction started. And I was maybe 20, 21. And the more I took them, the more I had to take. Like, meaning I would start off taking half, just like my mom only gave me half. Then I would start off taking, or not start off, but then after that half didn't work, then I went to a whole one. After that whole one didn't work, I went to two. After the two stopped working, you go to three. It came to a point where I was taking three at a time. And this is because I was building up a tolerance, obviously, and I liked the feeling. It was easier for me to cope. It was easier for me to be even a parent. It was easier for me to go to chemo with my mother. It was easier for me to watch my mother, vomit from the chemo because her stomach was so bad, or she would have bad back pains. And I used to have to make my mother take her painkillers because she just hated them. And I was very, very sneaky about it. Very sneaky about it. Because my mother really didn't find out about me taking her pills until about maybe a year and a half later, and by that time, I was addicted, definitely. And my mom always had them, because she didn't take them like that. So probably within a year, she started noticing, like, what's going on here. And I would tell my mother, oh, I just took a couple because I was having cramps and blah, 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 blah. And then my mom would yell at me and say, I don't want you taking these, I don't want you getting addicted to these things. So she started hiding the bottles from me. So I think deep down my mother knew, but she never really said it. She literally would hide them from me, and I would find them. I always found them, you know. Um, there would be times where sometimes she would notice that I took the one she found, and sometimes she didn't. But it got to a point where I was probably taking about maybe 6 to 7. See, the good thing about my addiction is that in a way, I was able to control it. Hold on, I'll turn off the camera. Sorry, guys. In a way, it's off. I was able to control it. And what I mean by that is at that time when I would do research about Vicodins, Percocets, all them things, I would get very paranoid because even though I definitely was addicted, I was still paranoid that they were going to mess up my liver or my kidneys. So I would only do the limited amount. Like, meaning I would never just pop pills all day. And I never did that. I would limit myself because I was very afraid that I would end up having kidney failure or, you know, things like that. I was paranoid about that because I am a very, very paranoid person. um, and I'm always having like anxiety and panic attacks and things like that. So I'm, what do you call that? Hypochondriac. So I was very aware, and I always definitely kept it to where I was only taking a certain amount. I would never just pop, 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 pop like a lot of my friends would do, you know. I got to a point where I was taking about 7 a day. And to me, that was a lot. I would have to take them when I got up in the morning. And for some people, like when I first took opioids for the first time, which was Vicodin, when I first took them, they got me drowsy. However, once I got immune to them, those things were like freaking coffee, or like the strongest coffee in existence. Like, I was super mom. I was happy all the time. I was never in a bad mood. I was coping with my mother taking chemo. I would clean the whole house and go take my little guy to football practice, and just I was like super mom with those things. And it just eventually came to a point where, like I said, I was taking up to 7 a day, sometimes 8, depending upon the day. And my mother never really knew, but I think she did. She just never said anything. And I don't blame my mother for that. I think at that time, with the things that she was going through, she was just scared. She was scared. And she basically never really paid attention to it. You know, like, she would just hide them, and then I would find them. She would hide them in a different place, I'd find them again. She'd hide them in a different place, I'd find them again. And to me, in my head, to justify it, I would be like, she doesn't even take them. So why is she hiding them from me when she don't even take them? You know? That's what I thought at my young, immature age. I'm like, why does she keep hiding the damn things? Like, she was hiding them from me. And I'm like, why is she hiding them if she's not going to take them anyway, right? She's just going to let them expire in the bottle. That's what I literally, my logic, and to make myself feel better about myself. See, one thing about drug addicts is there's always an excuse. There's always an answer to everything. And if you don't have an answer, you're going to find an answer. You're going to find a way to justify your actions. You just are, good or bad. Especially the bad things that you choose to do from being an addict, you're going to find a way to justify them. And that was my justification. I'd be like, nah, she don't take them anyway. She needs to quit hiding them from me. I would literally get so mad when she would hide them from me, but she was hiding them because she didn't want me to get addicted. She was being a mom, you know, a mother who loved her daughter. And what I realized that I was doing is all I was doing was self-medicating myself. Instead of seeking help, because I'm well into my 20s, and instead of seeking help and trying to get counseling, because it's obvious that watching my mother take chemo affected me more than I ever knew. So instead of self-medicating, what I should have done is gotten into counseling and did what I could to help myself.
Won't get into counseling until they admit to themselves that they're an addict.
Right. And I wasn't admitting it to myself. I wasn't admitting that I was an addict. I'm like, no, I'm not like them other people. I would always say that, you guys.
I got this, I got that.
Right. I take care of my kids. I clean the house. I take my kids to football practice. I'm trying to be the perfect mother, the perfect daughter, going to chemo with my mother. I'm like, I'm not like them other people, but, and here's the thing that you guys really, the number one thing that you guys really need to know is I was so good at keeping my addiction a secret. I was so good at it. You would never have known. If somebody who knew me back then.
That's what addicts think.
Nobody knew.
They think nobody knows. They think that because we're so into yourselves at the time. They think no one knows, but people know.
Well, I don't think anybody knew. I was good at keeping it a secret, Deep down, I think my mother knew, though. I really do.
Oh, she knew.
She knew, but she was scared. And that doesn't make her, a bad mom or anything like that. She was just scared to face that. And in a way, I'm glad she didn't, because she didn't need that in her life at that time from battling cancer. She didn't need that in her life. She didn't need to worry about that. She was worried about me enough with being such a young mom. And I just don't think she wanted to face it, but she did whatever she could to secretly stop it, which was hide them, and I always found them. So basically, I walked around, felt like I had it made, right? I had it made. I'm taking, I got my pills. I started realizing that those pills meant everything to me. They really did, you guys. I never knew it until I started to look back on it. My whole life revolved around those pills. And I started noticing that, okay, well, I don't need these anymore. And I would prove it to myself. I would try to prove it to myself. I'm a very stubborn woman. Exactly. Yep, that's it, Steph. The pills would make or break your day. So there would be some times that my mother would get better at hiding them. And when I couldn't find them, I'd be like, I don't need them. I don't need them anyway. And one day I had a reality check and realized, oh my God, I do. I was in a horrible mood. I didn't want to get up and do anything. I didn't want to play with my kids. At that time I had to, because that's when I had my Donovan. Now, mind you, when I got pregnant, keep in mind that when I got pregnant, I was 16. So I didn't start taking pills until I was in my 20s. when I got pregnant with my Donovan, I stopped completely, and I was fine. I was fine. But this was an ongoing battle. And like I said, when I would be without them, I literally couldn't function. I would literally sit there all day like a zombie. Yeah, basically like a zombie watching TV. Those pills were my happy pills, you know? I never got sick or anything like that. I just was a zombie. I was a walking, talking zombie. And that's when it started being scary to me. And I think the most scary it got to me is when I was laying down sleeping and I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop my legs from moving. They just wouldn't stop moving. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? You know, because in my mind, I'm like, I don't need those. I just take them to ease the pain, but I don't need them, you know? And when I couldn't sleep that night, I'm like, it has to be this. It has to be because I haven't taken those pills. So it seriously came to a point where I didn't like how those pills were taking over my life. I didn't want to be dependent on pills to make myself happy. And you would think that after, you know, having my second child and not being on any kind of medication, that I would be able to just not take them again. But I couldn't wait to take them again after I had him. I remember confiding in someone, a friend, and I told them about my situation. And the reason why I told this specific person is because she was literally the closest friend to me at that time. And she was pretty much addicted to, you know, alcohol and all that. So I was talking to her about it and confided in her. And I remember her telling me that you need to get yourself help. You know, she's like, if you don't, you're going to move on to something bigger and stronger. That's one thing that I never, ever had any desire to do. I never had any desire to want to take anything else but what I was taking. I was in love with those pills. So it's reality. I was, and I never, but I remember her saying that. And I also remember her saying that if I didn't stop, you know, that my life was going to be permanently damaged, you know. I remember her saying that. I remember her being surprised because she's like, I can't believe it, you know. But what I realized through being addicted is that addiction itself is scary and it's hard. It's hard to face. It's hard to face those demons. It's hard to be able to look at yourself and say, you are dependent on a substance to function in life from day to day. I couldn't admit that to myself.
That's the first step. Being in denial.
Yeah, I couldn't admit that to myself. I knew it deep down, but I couldn't admit it to myself. And every single time I would try to prove to myself that I wasn't addicted, it just got worse. Let's put it that way. And I remember he found our baby's toy that he's been looking for forever, a LeBron James toy. I remember going to one of my friend's house. I was going to pick her up. And this was a time that my mother didn't have any of the pills, or I couldn't find them or whatever. She had these patches. I'm not going to say the name of it, Okay, I'm not going to say the name. Vet, you guys know what it is. A very strong, I think it's the strongest medication out there. And my mother's chemo was getting stronger, and the doctor gave her these patches. And I remember saying, I'm going to take one of these patches, I'm going to cut it in half, and I'm not going to take the whole thing. And I just put it in my car, in my glove compartment. My friend who got in my car, she was also an addict, but she was an addict of serious, like, an addict is an addict, but she was pretty bad on heroin. But she was still my friend, and she was in my car one day, and she opened my glove compartment, and she's like, Tia, what are you doing with this? And I said, and it starts with an F, and I said, oh, no, that's just my mom's, and she's like, Tia, do you know that if we were to get pulled over right now and a police officer sees this in your car, you would go to prison for a long time, at least 20 years with this? I'm like, no, that's my mom's. All my mom would have to do. She's like, it doesn't matter. She's like, what are you doing with this? Because even though she was a hardcore heroin addict, she literally was very protective over me. She was a good friend to me. You know what I mean? She's never, tried to get me to be addicted to that or anything like that. And she told me, she's like, you need to get this out of your car right now. She's like, I don't know what you're thinking, but I knew nothing of it. And that's when the F word wasn't really that big. Now it's in everything, and it's killing people right now worldwide. But that was a reality check for me. But the biggest reality check for me, you guys, is when I stopped getting them from my mother. And there's another story that goes along with that, and I'm sure I will tell you guys about that eventually. But when I stopped getting them from my mother and started actually buying them, because my mother was getting better at hiding, and I just didn't want to deal with the hassle, so I just started buying them. And what did it for me, you guys, is when I started pawning stuff. When I started pawning stuff, even though I had a good job at the time, I was working at GM. When I started pawning stuff, I realized I was spending like $50, $60 every other day on these pills. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. There's no possible way I can do this, because it's literally, I'm pawning things. Like, I would pawn like a gold bracelet that I never wore, because my mother always kept her daughter G'd up even when I was older. That's just the way my mom was. And I started seeing myself pawning things, and I'm like, no. This is getting bad. This is getting really, really bad when you start pawning your possessions that mean a lot to you. So I finally decided that was my rock bottom. That was when I realized I'm pawning stuff. I'm pawning stupid DVDs and gold and a ring and things like that. I'm like, no, I will not do this. I will not be that person. I won't. So I think I was maybe about 26, 27. And I decided to make an appointment with the counselor, and also just see a psychiatrist. And when I did that, by telling my story and talking about, my mother, that counselor made me realize that all I was doing was self-medicating the pain away. I was watching my mother go through something very traumatic and serious. She's going through chemo, fighting for her life. And instead of me facing that head on, I needed something to ease the pain and stop me from facing it. In reality, I was there, but I wasn't there because I always tried to go to chemo sessions with my mother. And when I was there, I really wasn't there. All I was doing was self medicating the pain away of watching my mother fight for her life and go through pain daily. If I could have took that pain away from my mother, I would have. I really would have. But I couldn't. And all I could do, because I always felt like I had to be strong for my mother. There's just no way. I always put up a very big united front with her. Not united, but just like a big front of, I'm your daughter, I'm your rock, I'm here for you, I'm not going to lose it, because I always felt like if I lost it, then she would give up and not want to fight anymore. So I felt like I had to be strong. And those pills, like that counselor made me realize, those pills I thought were making me numb to the pain and making me stronger for my mom. But she's like, all that was doing was making me weaker. Every single pill that I took, I was getting weaker and weaker and weaker, to a point where had I not sought counseling and sought professional help, I may not have been able to be there for my mother at all. Because something could have happened to me. And if something could have happened to me while my mother was fighting for her life, what do you think that would have done to my mother? So the psychiatrist ended up diagnosing me with anxiety and severe depression. They put me on, I think, is it Xanax for the anxiety, and was it Prozac at first? I think it was Prozac. And for sleeping, triazidol. And, it helped. It really, really did. It helped me get through some really, really tough times. And it also made me face my demons and face the things that I needed to face head on, instead of doing whatever I had to do to hide from them. And it was a very, very liberating moment of my life, because I didn't have to seek help, but I knew something had to give, because maybe I would have wanted to move on to something else. I don't know. But there obviously are a lot of stories that I can tell you guys, and I definitely will, because we will talk about this again. But we will go into that next time. Ooh, thank you. My babe got me wine. Oh, that's good. That's good. I never drink wine. But I needed to do what I did. I'm glad that I did what I did. And I thank God that I did what I did. And I'm glad that I didn't put that burden on my mother, even though I think deep down she knew, she just didn't want to face it head on. I'm glad that she didn't know. I really am, because that's the last thing that she needed to worry about while she was fighting for her life. So ultimately, I feel like, and I remember getting into this argument with a guy at work, because he said, because we were talking about addiction, and he's like, addiction is an excuse that the government, or whoever, he said, created to make people excusable for taking drugs. He's like, it is not a disease. He's like, people who have a disease don't have a choice. The people who choose to pick up that pill do have a choice. And that's where he's wrong. The reason why I say that is because a lot of people think that about addiction. He's one of those types. I have no empathy for people who are addicted to anything. They are weak-minded people, blah, 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 blah. Mind you, he's saying this, well, I was a recovering addict. So I looked at him and I said, no. First of all, if addiction runs in your family, that definitely contributes to the fact that it's harder for you to turn away from it. But regardless, like I told him, no, you're right. Nobody forces anybody to pick up a drug or to pick up a beer. However, how do you explain how some people can pick up a drug, do it once, and never do it again, ever? And some people can pick up a drug and be addicted for the rest of their life or half of their life or whatever. It's, you may make that choice, but once you put whatever it is that you choose, whatever narcotic it is that you choose to use, once you intake that, you don't have a choice, because it's all about how your brain operates and how you yourself as the individual respond to it. So that means some people don't have those addictive traits and they can do things occasionally and be perfectly fine. However, some people, because of how their brain works, they take something one time, they like it, and they become addicted. It's not about
Addicted personality.
Yeah. Some people have the addictive personality, some people don't. You can't sit there and say you have no empathy for people who are on medication, blah, 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 blah. People like that make me sick, because how could you think that a person would purposely want to be addicted to something? You think people who are addicted brought that on themselves? Addiction is out of your control, right? So the thing is that, just like my fiance just said, you think people around you don't know, but they do. And I'm sure me thinking, oh, nobody knows, I'm hiding it from everybody, I'm sure probably 90% of the people that I was around knew. In my family, my stepdad, my brothers, I'm sure they all knew, but
Addicts' mind think they're invincible.
Right. An addict's mind thinks they're invincible. And that's true. My fiance knows a lot about this. He has his own story, and I'm sure he will tell that one day. I'm sure he will tell that one day to help somebody else. But yes, an addict's mind, they think they're invincible. And it's true. It is true, because I watched my brother do it. Now, I do not think that, listen, an addict is an addict. You cannot sit there and say that just because this person is on heroin and their life is more out of control than yours, that that your addiction isn't as bad as theirs. Addiction is addiction. That needs to be perfectly clear. However, some people handle addiction differently than others as well. Some people are functioning addicts, and I know a lot of them still till this day. And then there are some people who are not functioning addicts. There are people who are on heroin, the H word. I don't know why I'm afraid. I don't want to say the F word. I just feel like it's a very controversial topic. But there are some people who are on heroin who can function, and there are some people who can't. And one of my best friends growing up, I don't talk to her much now. As a matter of fact, she just got out of prison. But she was addicted. She was that classic case of recreational to literally step by step in the handbook of getting addicted. She first started off with smoking marijuana, then she moved on to cocaine, then she moved on to crack, then she moved on to OCs, then she moved on to the worst thing, which is the H word. And she It was literally so devastating to watch her. She had so much potential, you know. Um, Everyone loved to be around her. She had this great personality. She was so smart. And to watch her waste away her life like that was heartbreaking. And I always would refer back to her, even when I myself was on um, pills, you know, because she ended up losing all four of her children, and her four children grew up in the foster care system. Horrible, horrible things, you know. Some people's addiction is worse than others, but it doesn't make your addiction any less, it doesn't make you any less of an addict than the person next to you just because they're going through it differently than you know. That's another thing that really bothers me. Drugs are so good, it'll ruin your life. Sad but true. Yes, absolutely. So ultimately, what I'm thankful for is that I caught myself, but it took me a long time to catch myself, you guys. It really did. And I don't blame anyone for it but myself. I was very, very I was going through a lot of pain, and I was withholding a lot of that pain, keeping it inside so I can be strong for my mother. And that's just not the way to go, because while I was thinking I was strong, all I'm doing is taking pills and making myself weaker by the day, like that counselor said. And that stuck out with me for a long time. Am I going to say that I didn't relapse? Oh, yes, I did. That's normal. It's a normal thing. And the thing is I think what's really important is, and then I'm going to open up the panel if anyone else wants to share their story. If you don't, no pressure. That's perfectly understandable. But the most important thing that I will say out of everything, and like I said, I will discuss this again, is that it definitely wasn't the only person that I give outing to is my mother, and it's because of what she was going through. However, other people around, like my stepdad and my brothers, people who would see me, I deep down think that they knew. And as a person on the outside watching a loved one be addicted, don't be quiet. You know, if you see someone around you, whether it's a loved one or a friend that you really care about, and you see something's wrong, 9 times out of 10, you're probably right. And staying quiet isn't going to help them, because not everybody is like me. Not everybody is going to take the initiative to say, you know what, I need to seek help. Not everyone's going to do that. Some people, it's just not a good thing to keep quiet. I do wish that some of my family members would have spoke up a lot. Well, they didn't speak up at all. I wish that one of them would have spoke up and said, we know that this is going on, you know, because although it is a very uncomfortable conversation, it's a conversation that needs to be had when it comes to somebody you love. Very, very important. And I also want to say, if you or someone you know is suffering from addiction in any way, shape, or form, just know that you can only do the best you can, but don't beat yourself up for things that are out of your control. Because the one thing that will ultimately hurt a drug addict is enabling them. So don't ever think that you're not doing enough, or you wish you could have done more, or you should be doing more. Please don't do that, because that's not good for you as a person. Please don't ever blame yourself if you have someone close to you that is an addict. All you can do is the best thing that you can do, which is help them to help themselves. But the one thing I will tell you is, if they don't want to help themselves, they're not. And you can't make them. And it's frustrating because even after being, you know, going through my addiction, my brother was still going through his. You know what I mean? And he was on something much, um, even though he's not, he was on hardcore, like, you know, the H word and all that kind of stuff and going downhill. So I just want everyone to know that you can only do the best you can. Don't ever beat yourself up. You know, don't do that. Thank you so much, Boston. Tia, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I am so amazed at your strength, and I am so proud of you. So happy for everyone else here in recovery too. Me too. I'm so happy, and it's every day. It's recovering every day. You know, every day is a step-by-step process, and I will say that I have not touched a pill in probably, I'm going to go ahead and say 5+ years, maybe longer. It's been a long time. My fiance and I don't, you know, we don't do any of that. We don't even drink alcohol. This is the first glass of wine that I've had in probably the first glass of wine that both of us have had in probably at least a year. It's okay to have a glass of wine sometimes, unless obviously you are, you know, suffering with alcoholism. That's different. But we have stayed away from that. And you will hear my fiance's story one day, which is way different than mine. He's way different. And he has a very, very inspiring story as well. Thank you so much, Steph. So proud of you. The stigma needs to be removed. To talk about this, especially online, is commendable. Good job, love. Oh, thank you so much, Steph. You are such an amazing person, and you mean so much to me. All of you do. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope this helps somebody. Make sure that you share this live, maybe with somebody that you know, whatever. But I think that people really don't give family members who have, you know, a drug addict in their life. People don't give family members enough credit because it is the hardest thing to watch. It is so hard. It is so hard. And my heart goes out to anyone who has a family member or you yourself is going through addiction. I'm going to go ahead and open up the panel. I know it's late. It is 1:41, y'all. So I won't keep you guys too long. But I do want to open up the panel for anyone who does want to share their story that may inspire somebody else, you know. And just know that I can't say that I've ever had a serious addiction, but I had an SO who was an alcoholic, and something he significantly impacted my life. It was really traumatic situation. I'm so sorry, Jennifer K. I am so sorry. It is very traumatic to watch somebody that you love go through that. It really is. And like I said, people don't give family members enough credit because let me tell you, it is probably one of the most painful things to watch somebody that you love and you have no control. You're literally watching them kill themselves, and there's nothing that you can do. So I completely understand.
Hey, love.
Hey, you guys. How are you, Goose and Boston?
I'm good.
That's good.
Thank you so much for sharing your story.
You're welcome. It wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I knew obviously we've talked about it before, but I never knew, you know, how it started and the progression of it all, and when you made the realizations and when you hit your rock bottom, and you should be so proud of yourself. And sharing this story and talking about this does two things. One, it could help somebody who's in active addiction, to see yourself and so many people in chat who've made it through to the other side. But I
Yeah.
think it also helps people who have had similar experiences and who are in recovery to see that they're not alone and that they shouldn't be ashamed, and
Yeah.
that they should celebrate every day that they're in recovery. Um,
Absolutely.
and your story included, discussing what it's like for family members, and that from what you went through with your own brother, and you can
Yeah.
see both sides of the experience. And I can tell you, in addiction, the family gets just as sick as the addict. So
Uh,
it's so important, for family
so
members to know about Al-Anon. And Goose brought up Nar-Anon, which is like Al-Anon, but for family members and friends of drug addicts. There's just so many resources out there. I've been like spamming the chat with all the links.
yes,
Um,
thank you, you guys, Melissa and you, Boston, and Heather, who have been sharing the links. I really, really appreciate you guys for doing that.
of course, anyone who might be watching this, to have that link readily available to just click on it and make that decision, to get help. Or to be honest, I struggled with my mental health. My whole family did for years, with
Mm-hmm.
my father, before I even knew that Al-Anon existed.
Yeah,
Um,
and we are going to talk about this again, but you, like, kind of give us a summary of your dad. So then, after
yeah, so he
we
he was a
talk about
he
her,
was
go ahead.
he was a functioning alcoholic for most of my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And our family, like, I grew up, we always went to parties in the neighborhood. We were very social. We always had parties and went to parties. And my mom drank too, but she was never a big drinker.
Yeah.
I found out years later that at these parties, like, there was also drug use going on that, like, I was obviously not aware of as a child.
Right.
um into my teen years, it started turning into, like, okay, well, he got his first DUI, so obviously there's a problem. Um, but we didn't recognize it as alcoholism. Um, and he didn't, obviously, he was in denial. Um, and then things started getting worse, um, when I actually moved out. So I was like 18 when I moved out. My brothers were still very young. I was getting calls from my mom that my dad was bringing them to go shoot pool at the local bar up the street. And it still wasn't weird. It's just like, oh, well, that's just what dad does.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turned into my brothers saying they were afraid to drive with him. He was driving intoxicated. Um, then um, he ended up leaving. My parents separated for a few years. It was because of infidelity. It wasn't necessarily because of the alcoholism, but he moved in with a group of kids my age. And I remember I used to go over there and hang out with them all, and my dad, and it just started spiraling out of control. He eventually he got early retirement, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we all knew that it was because he had worked at this place for so many years. He was brilliant at what he did, but obviously they saw his drinking was becoming a problem. Um, and then, I moved to Boston, early 20s, and I would just get phone calls from my mom and my brothers, just how bad things were getting. And I didn't really understand it
Mm-hmm.
until they lost their house. Um, he had been just spending all the money on alcohol and drugs. So he had started using cocaine,
Oh,
and pills. Xanax was a big one.
yeah.
Um, and he lost their house. So my mom and my brothers, I just said, come live with me. I had a 2-bedroom apartment. And so they moved to Boston. And shortly after, my dad moved in with us because we didn't know what to do. We don't want him to be homeless. We
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
know. It's just so hard for the family because you don't know what you're supposed to do. We're angry. We wanted him, you know, my mom, he freaking lost their house. He lost the job. He ruined their lives. Like, there's so
Yeah.
much anger involved that you're not focusing on what the problem is and what he's actually going through.
Right.
So, you know, I spent a good 4 years just completely out of my mind. It affected me and my family physically and emotionally. Having to go find him in the city, he'd go missing for days.
Yeah, that was my brother.
Yeah, he had been through. So when he was in Colorado, he had gone to rehab twice, and he actually was sober for a full year at one point out in Colorado before they lost the house and his job, and they had to move out here. So 2 times in Colorado. When he came out here, we would tell him, "You can't live with us, and we will not support you if you don't go to rehab." So he went to rehab. I want to say 4 times before his rock bottom, and he left rehab a lot. He'd come up with excuses or reasons, or, you know, people were fighting, it was scary. And unfortunately, the hardest thing as a family member was, you know, I've got my dad on the floor passed out, and I'm calling looking for a bed for him at a rehab, and that was the hardest thing. And I don't know if that's true all across the country, but here in Boston, it was so hard to find a bed somewhere.
Yeah.
And it was just an in and out. Like, him and all these other, he'd go from place to place and he'd see other people he had seen in other rehabs, you know, like it's just a in and out. You know, no one was truly getting the help that they needed. It just felt so frustrating. What can we do? And finally, I mean, I'm trying to shorten the story, but there are other like instances where literally I called the police. I didn't want him to be homeless, so I was buying him hotel rooms.
Yeah.
I was enabling, and I didn't realize it until one time we got a call from someone, my mom and I. He was supposed to be at the hotel. He was supposed to be going to rehab the next day. We got a call from my dad's cell phone. It was a person saying, it was not my dad. It was a person saying, "Hey, I think that your father or your husband is having a medical emergency. He has passed out on the sidewalk." He told us where, and it was just up the street from our house. So we drove up there, and he was passed out. He had a plastic bag full of nips. There was about 12 empty nip bottles, and there was a crack pipe.
Wow.
And that was the first time we realized he's using drugs. So we went to the hospital with him. We followed the ambulance. The hospital's just right up the street from us. He was passed out in bed. My mom and I were sitting there. We were crying. We were just like so mentally exhausted. I decided I was going to look at his phone. And we found the most disturbing. He had all these contacts in there that he would label as AA, like AA John, AA Kim. And so that when they'd call, he would just tell us, or text, he was like, "Oh, it's just friends from AA." Because during this 4-year experience, he kept trying to get help. And there were so many moments where he was just crying. It was so hard because he wasn't an asshole about it. He'd be in bed crying and begging for help and saying how he just wants to end his life and how he just doesn't understand why he can't get sober. There were a few instances in between this time period where he did go through the withdrawal. He almost died. He actually was in the hospital, and the doctor prescribed him 2 glasses of whiskey a day.
What?
And my mom and I were just, our jaws dropped. We're like, what? And he said he will die if he doesn't.
Yeah. Alcohol, they say alcohol is the worst that you have withdrawals from. Like, it's the worst. Like, you can literally die from the withdrawals from alcohol.
Yeah, that's how bad. And we got a breathalyzer for him at one point and would make him blow every time he was drunk. And we'd call the hospital so many times because he was so I don't remember the worst number, but he was like 2 point something on the breathalyzer plenty of times. So yeah, I mean, near death, we felt like nothing. When is he going to hit this rock bottom? I mean, the things
Yeah.
he's gone through. But anyways, I'm going through the phone at the hospital, and there's text messages between him and this woman, and he's got pictures of himself. Like, she obviously took the picture of him, so she's in the hotel room with him, and they're both talking about getting money and getting drugs from their contact person. And
That must have been hard to see.
it was so hard. And then my mom, and I said, I'm so sorry, Mom, but I need to show you this. And
Yeah.
we read them together, and I walked up to him in the hospital bed, and he was passed out, and I slapped him across the face, and I said, fuck you, have a good life, I never want to see you again. And that was probably one of the hardest moments in my entire life. I felt like I completely lost my dad. My dad is an amazing person. He was a terrific father, so caring. He was my best friend. We have so much in common too. Like, him and I just have all the same interests. When he's sober, it's amazing. When he's not, it's just gut wrenching because of how close we were. So that was one of the hardest moments in my life. He called us after he got out of the hospital. We had put all his stuff on the curb. I'm laughing looking back at it because this ended up being his bottom.
Yeah.
We got in the car, and I agreed to give him one more night at a hotel because he found a bed at a place, or actually I found a bed at a place for him, and it was a place he had never been before. And we sat in the car, and we both just cried and talked for like 2 hours before he could check into the hotel. He went to the hotel. The next morning I picked him up. He was seemingly sober at the time, drove him to the rehab. He was there for a week, and usually that's like their time limit, and then they have to go home. There's nothing else longer than that. We are not rich. I mean, they had lost all their money, so we couldn't afford like a nice 30-day. Like, if you want those longer rehabs, you got to have money.
Yeah.
So he's at this place, and he called, and he is like a kid at Christmas. He's like, oh my God, there's a place out there. It's called Knockeg. It's in Western Mass, and they're offering me a 30-day stay.
Oh, wow.
So he went, and each day he'd call, and he would tell us, this is different. This feels so different. I'm learning so much. And on the 20th day of the 30 days, he called, and he said, I had my light bulb moment. So he came home after that 30-day stay, and he was sober for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God. He recently has struggled with some relapses, not with alcohol. And that was his big thing. Alcohol was the big, I mean, yes, he once in a while did, obviously he had done the crack and the cocaine and the Xanax, but the alcohol, he has been drink-free, sober from alcohol for 2 years. But his relapses were as recent as a month ago but every time he relapses, I've learned, because I've had 2 years of going to Al-Anon and educating myself about addiction and understanding the disease and talking to my dad. And he's brought me to I went to so many meetings with him, so many AA meetings, and heard so many stories. And
Hold on 1 second. Thank you so much, Rose Gold. I love you so much.
Oh, I didn't see
Thank you
that.
so much,
I'm
beautiful.
sorry.
That means so much to me. Thank you.
I wasn't looking at the chat.
Oh, that's okay. Okay.
But yeah, my story's basically, I'm sorry, it's a long story, but it's basically over. He's had his slip ups, but he instantly is admitting to his slip ups, and instantly, I think my frustration right now is that he's not going to meetings. Like, I really want him to go to NA meetings. He thinks he doesn't have a problem with it, but the slip ups keep happening. So I don't know. We're kind of in a place right now where at least we have a communication open. we know when he's sober. I mean, we asked him if he could do drug tests for us. He's doing that. So I don't know if he's potentially going to slip into becoming a drug addict now. I mean, that's my huge fear, but I at least know that he's in some form of recovery. He's serious about it. He knows how to get help.
Yeah. That's
So
important.
I'm proud of him every day. I tell him every day that he's sober that I'm so proud of him.
Yeah. And that's important.
Yeah.
Bruce,
And
go ahead. Finish what you're
I
saying.
was just going to say, I can't recommend Al-Anon more. And I've never been to a Nar-Anon meeting, but I'm sure it's the same thing. Families need as much support as the addicts do. You guys,
Exactly.
if any family member in here is listening to this or in the chat, if you haven't found support for yourself, even if the addict in your life is sober now, there's still trauma that you've went through.
Right.
And you still need to get that help for yourself as well.
I agree. 100%. Goose?
So mine is obviously about myself. It's not about a family member. I grew up in a family, though, where alcoholism was really prevalent. So that was something for me that I tried to stay away from as long as possible. But basically, on October 3rd of 2002, I ended up falling when I was in school, and I hurt my back. And so for years, I just tried to tough it out. I did physical therapy. I did massage therapy. And I just thought I'd like sprained something. So I figured as a prior athlete, like, oh, I'll just, walk it off and it'll get better. But years down the road, so that was 2002. And then by 2006, things were just not getting better. And so my doctor was like, oh, well, we can put you on a pain management program. And so I was thinking like, oh, okay, this is great. Like, but looking back now, a lot of things that people don't talk about is like other traumas like in your life. And the reason I'm sharing my story is because a lot of people don't know like prior traumas can exacerbate addiction. So for me, with having SA happen as a child and then as an adult, basically one of the things that the doctor didn't ask me, which I've later learned when I went to treatment, was that a lot of doctors are supposed to actually ask you like, now, have you had any trauma in your life? Because that can be a huge like precursor for addiction or like an addictive personality. But I didn't think about it because, of course, you want to trust your doctor and that they're doing the right thing. So I started off with taking V's, and then later it switched to P's, and then it went back to V10s. And so I got to the point where in August of 2010, I realized, like, oh, I'm waking up in the morning and I'm just feeling like shit before I take something. So I called up my doctor on a Monday morning when I was supposed to refill my script. And I just said, oh, I'm just done. I'm not going to take it anymore. And the nurse was like, we'll have the doctor call you back. Because I didn't know at the time, like if I had stopped that, you can potentially have like a seizure or a stroke, because I've been on them at that point for, I think, 5 years, 2006, 7, 8, 9, and then almost all of 2010. So I just figured, okay, well, I'm just going to stop it, cold turkey, no big deal. So when the doctor called me back and said that, he was like, well, we'll wean you off like in the next 6 weeks. But for me, I was so scared, like with what was happening to my body, like I didn't want to do the 6 weeks. And so stupid me, I figured, the quicker, the better. And so he said, well, sorry, there's a car driving by. I said, he said, well, the only thing that I'm really going to let you do that, like, I'll authorize as your doctor is a 6-day rapid detox. And that was by far probably the worst thing I could have done. I did it. And for about 6 months, I just felt horrible. Like I just could not, I felt like I was having like severe anxiety every single day. Of course, I wasn't telling my doctor this because I felt ashamed and all of that sort of stuff. So I kept trying to tough it out. And then I got pregnant. And so that helped me to not want to use, because obviously like I wanted my child to be as safe and healthy as possible. But when I had my daughter, I had a really bad delivery, and all women know things that can happen. And so I ended up with, we'll just say, a lot of stitches. And some other things that went wrong. And so they put me back on pain pills for a week, and I got addicted again immediately. And I tried really hard to just, not take anything. And then probably about 6 months after my daughter was born, I started having some endometriosis issues again, because if people aren't familiar with it, like
It's
when you're
very
pregnant,
painful.
and when you're pregnant, usually it subsides.
Yeah.
And so then after that, I ended up reaching out to a doctor and trying to get something scheduled to where I could finally try to fix that instead of having to take pain pills for it. So I ended up having an endometrial resection, which was like a 4.5 hour surgery where they put you under general anesthesia and remove it from as many places as possible. And
Yeah.
it was so painful afterwards, they put me back on pain pills. And so that's what started it again for me. So that was April of 2014.
I feel like it
And
starts a lot with doctors too. Go ahead.
well, yeah, no, I totally agree. And like my friends that have unfortunately turned to H, that all started with like a car accident and
Yeah.
an injury, and then their doctors had them on like crazy amounts of drugs. And then when everything happened and they cut, the pharmaceutical companies or whoever it was wanted to try to, the doctors wanted to change things, they just took people's doses and they were like, okay, we're just going to cut them in half instead of like weaning them down and trying to figure out like alternatives. And so then, of course, anybody who's taken stuff and has been on them for that long, you can't just, well, for a lot of people who become dependent on
they
it,
look
you can't
elsewhere.
just stop.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of like, that's what happened with me. And at the same time, I was trying to work through my trauma as a child. And that's another thing that I don't think enough people talk about is when you end up, with an addiction, a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times there is a trauma related to it, something that keeps you on that pill, because it does, like you said, Tia, it numbs that pain. It makes it so that you feel almost invincible to whatever is going on in your daily life. So for me, unfortunately, I was working for the person who abused me as a child. And that was something, because it was a family business, like I was trying to, like basically, since I'd lost my dad, I was trying to kind of do what he might have like wanted me to do, instead of like putting myself first and thinking what would be healthy for me. So in September of 2014, I just got to my breaking point. I remember I had a full bottle of stuff and I left my house and I went and hid. I turned my cell phone off, and my ex was calling my mom. They were both freaking out about me, because I was just at the point where I was just like, I was stuck in an abusive relationship. I was trying to work through this trauma, but it was just not going well at all. And I just, was at my breaking point. And I finally called my mom and told her, I was like, I just need help. Like, I don't want to take this stuff anymore. And I just don't want to feel like this. And of course, when you aren't taking the stuff and your feelings are raw, like you feel like shit, and then when you put withdrawal on top of it, it just exacerbates that emotional pain that you're feeling. And so fortunately for me, I didn't want to go to a local place for a couple of reasons. There isn't much where I live, because I live in a small town, but I also didn't want my ex coming, or now my ex, but at the time he was still in my life. I didn't want him visiting me. I needed a break from everything.
Yeah.
And so I was lucky enough to be able to go all the way to California, and I live in Washington. So I went all the way to California to a place called Seasons in Malibu, and went there for a month and was able to just really work through everything. And it was, I would say, for anybody who might be listening to this who is struggling, whether it's a trauma or addiction or the combination, like working through therapy and getting to the root of the problem that's either continuing you to use or hurt or, feel pain or whatever, it's so important, because I learned so much about just my life in general. They have you actually make a whole entire timeline from the point you're born until the day you're there. And you write down everything so that they can connect all the dots and figure out, like, what are all these little things that have happened to you. Like, one thing I never thought about was when the trauma stopped for me, like the sexual abuse and rape and stuff, when I was 9 years old as a child is when it ended and the person moved away. I broke my arm like a month later and they put me on codeine. And I didn't know at the time, but that can be a connection for addiction later on in life. And that's one of the reasons why the doctors and the team of people that I had working with me in California, they were like, oh my gosh, doctors are really supposed to ask you about like trauma and stuff like that when they prescribe like a long-term pain management program, because there can be a really strong connection there. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what makes me so angry is that the type of place that you went to is the type of place that should be available to everyone.
Oh, absolutely.
No matter the financial situation. And I think that's the biggest problem.
That's the
because
problem.
where you went is where I wanted to send my dad,
Yeah.
Because he was going in and out of these places that literally they just detox you. And they send you back out on the streets.
Exactly. And it was weird too, because like my insurance wouldn't take it because I don't know why. I was on Premier Blue Cross. I actually had pretty good insurance, I thought, at the time. And they basically try to use however long you have to detox for to then play into how much they're going to cover. It was $50,000, not including the medications that I was prescribed, like to detox, and like they put me on some medicine to help me sleep, and then like Celexa, I think, for like anxiety and depression. But there were people I was with whose insurance covered it, and I was just like, what the heck? And it was crazy because they didn't even have, like, compared to the insurance that I had in Washington State through Primera, compared to what they had like in their other states. Like one guy was from New York, one gal was actually from Canada, and it was just crazy to see like how their insurance ended up covering this place. But like here,
but others didn't.
I'm paying $748 a month for insurance for my daughter and I, and it didn't even cover this.
That's what's horrible is that there's so many, I think the majority of addicts, by the time that they reach their rock bottom and actually seek help, they've lost their jobs, they're uninsured, they don't have the financial support that they once had at one point in their life, or never had. A lot of addicts never had that kind of financial freedom. And the places that are there to help these people, the amazing places that do all that, childhood trauma, going through all of those steps, which is what people really, really, truly need. And that's, thank God, what my dad got. It's just this place that happened to be covered by state insurance and Medicare, and not like fancy or anything like that, but they did the work with these people and they offered them these longer stays. Unfortunately, it's a 20-bed facility, so the chances of an addict being able to get in there is like winning the lottery. And he got lucky. And laws need to be changed. They need to be changed.
Especially because addiction, like I said, is a disease. So therefore, there needs to be more nicer rehabs available to everyone who suffers from addiction. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Absolutely.
And as far as like when it comes to family members, that to me is another topic in itself. And excuse me, it's definitely something that I am going to talk about again, because I know both sides of it. I know because of watching my brother. I remember being with my mom at night, driving around trying to look for my brother, and people going to my mother and telling, just those phone calls in the middle of the night, and you're so scared. Like, I get that. And then I know the aspect as far as addiction, because I was one. So I am going to talk about as far as family members and what they have to endure, because I feel so bad for family members who have someone close to them that is suffers from addiction. It
Yeah,
is
I'll
so
definitely come back
hard.
for that one.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah, for
definitely.
sure. Especially too because like you've got the people who want to be compassionate and help people through it, and then like because of like when I needed to take the time off, like the first time when I decided to go off of it myself, my doctor said, okay, you need to take 2 weeks off and then go back 2 weeks part time. Like I said, I was not working for the best person at the time, but
Mhm.
he was so mad when I asked for that time and I shared what was going on in my life and everything. And I needed support, obviously, at that time. I didn't
Mhm.
need him to go and tell all my coworkers what was going on with me and shame me. I
Right.
mean, I turned around and shamed the shit out of him because I ended up leaving and I told everybody what happened and why I was so pissed off. And of course, that wasn't the right thing to do, but I was like, you're going to shame me for, you know, taking these pills that were doctor prescribed and you're not going to share the reason why there's issues between us. So I made sure that they all knew why,
Yeah.
what had happened. And that wasn't the best thing. It's not my proudest moment, but
Right.
I think that it's so hard for people to find that even balance because it's that fine line you have to walk where you need to be compassionate and supportive, but then you don't want to cross over to enabling people. And I
Right.
don't think that's why, like you were saying, Boston, with like the Al-Anon and all that sort of stuff, why it's so important, because a lot of people, they don't know that they're enabling, or they're just being so hard on the person. They're doing more damage than maybe if they just weren't there for a while.
Right.
It's like people kind
Well,
of need a little bit of help
exactly.
with that.
And even more so, like, so Al-Anon and Nar-Anon, they, so they kind of educate you more on what the addict's going through, but then they also focus on sharing each other's stories, because the trauma that an addict is going through, I would say, is in some cases equal to the trauma that the family is experiencing. I mean, every situation's different. It depends on the family unit and how they are, but I mean, there's like studies where they will explain the different roles that each family member has. Like if you're a child of an alcoholic, for instance, there's the middle child is going to act a certain way. The eldest child is usually going to be the rescuer, and they're going to have that complex their whole lives where they have to feel like they're always rescuing, they're always trying to save somebody, or so there's all these things that end up happening to the children, um, that so many different psychological studies have found, throughout the years. Um, yeah, learning boundaries really helps. Learning boundaries is a huge one. But it's so hard because I didn't have that experience that Tia had, being on both sides. I
Yeah.
think, Tia, that experience you had with your brother, in a way, probably helped you more than you even realize in
Oh yeah.
finding your own recovery.
Right.
Because you knew you had those things to. When you were sharing your story, I kept saying in the chat, like, thank God you had all of these moments throughout your addiction where you had realizations.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, there are tools to help in the end.
right? They all added up in the end to one big realization that you needed to get help.
Right.
And there are a lot of addicts that don't, they'll be years in before they have some of those realizations themselves. So I think that's huge. But one thing that I feel really blessed about is that I mean, I could have, when I slapped my dad in the face, I thought in that moment I was never going to see him again. And it was heartbreaking. It was literally, I felt like I had spent 4 years grieving somebody who was still alive. Um, and it was really hard because he was my best friend, and I felt like I was literally grieving this person every single day, and he was right there.
Yeah.
So the anger and the emotions, they take over, and it's so hard for you to find that other side where it's like you need to understand that he's not doing this on purpose. He's not doing this to hurt us. he's not doing this because he doesn't love us anymore. But all those feelings come up when that person's in their addiction. You're like, why aren't we enough? Why aren't we enough for you to get sober?
What's so frustrating as a family member is you literally, it's like you have no control, and you feel like, why doesn't this person want to live as much as I want them to live? Why can't they see what I see? Why can't they understand that every day that they do this, they're taking away their life? You just literally get so frustrated, like, why do you do this to yourself? Why can't you care about your life as much as I do? But what has to be understood about addiction is, when you suffer from addiction, you feel as though you are invincible. You don't care about other people. When you are going, anyone who suffers from addiction, you only care about one thing and one thing only, and that is whatever your drug of choice is and where you're going to get it. That's all you think about. You don't care about what your family so you as a family member are sitting there wanting to shake this person and say, please care about yourself. Don't you see the potential that I see? But all they're seeing is, they have a one-track mind, and their one-track mind is, I want my drugs. That's it.
Right. And they just want to numb whatever the pain is too, because when they are like, when they start to go through the withdrawals from whatever their drug of choice is, then the shame kicks in.
The shame.
And that shame can be so unbearable that then you're just like, oh my gosh, I need then it's like, I need my next fix. I need it. Like, and then the anxiety kicks in, and then it's the, oh my gosh, like, I'm such a horrible person for doing this. And then it's like that chase.
That was huge with my dad. He would say that's the one thing I feel lucky about that we had with him, was that he's very, very, he's one of the smartest people I know. And he's, even through the worst of his addiction and alcoholism, he could say those things. He could say, he could actually vocalize all of those things and say, I don't want to do this, and all I care about is this. And he would tell us, and I do this because I'm ashamed. I can't. And he would talk about his emotions, like when he was, detoxing and stuff. He would say, I can't handle those emotions. He goes, I literally just have full conversations in my head with myself about everything. I assume what everyone's going to say before they say it, so then I'm not listening to people.
Do you guys know imagine how many addicts have said, all I want to do is use one more time. And that was
Yeah.
And another thing that I do want to say, when it comes to AA meetings and things like that, I remember my aunt, she was dating a drug addict. And I remember my brother said this too, that I think they may have been together at this point, and we were talking. And my aunt went to an AA meeting with her boyfriend who suffered from addiction. Very bad. He was in a very bad place. And my aunt told me that when she was in that AA meeting with him, and I don't know if anybody else may have heard this, but my aunt told me, she's like, Tia, when I went to that AA meeting with him, she's like, I felt for him, because she's like, literally, if I was an addict, I would have wanted to leave and use. She said, my aunt specifically said, because my aunt's very straightforward, and she said, when you go to those meetings, it makes you want to use even more. Now,
it can be really heart-wrenching.
It depends.
It was a long time ago, so things are different now. But she did say the way that people talk about it, and the way they talk about, they just want to feel that next high and blah, 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 blah. It literally makes you, as an addict, want to go use as soon as you leave there.
Yeah, I think so. That can be true. My dad went to a ton of different meetings until he found his home group. Because there are some every meeting, because I went to so many with him, when he left that 30-day program and said something really clicked, I'd ask him, do you want me to come with you? And he'd say, yeah, like, actually, I'd really appreciate that, like, if you came with me. So I went to so many different meetings with him, and he'd leave some of those meetings and be like, nah, not coming back here. Nope,
Yeah.
not coming back this time. And he said for years that AA did not work for him. He was not
Yeah.
going to go. He tried, doesn't like it. He thought the same things. He finally found a meeting in a group where he just felt he was safe and comfortable there. The problem is everyone's triggers are so different.
Yeah.
Right.
So meetings are not for everyone.
Exactly.
But nowadays, there's also something, if anyone's listening to this, and are struggling, and AA or NA has not been helpful, there's something called smart recovery.
Yep.
Which is it's helped so many people that I know. I've had a few coworkers that, and my dad loves it too. It's a very different than AA. It's very much more just like kind of a group of people getting together and talking about like things that will help them, instead of necessarily like sharing their addiction stories.
Yeah, because
Um,
that can be super triggering. And I
yeah,
think people,
Yes.
there's so many different things that people just like, I think sometimes AA has kind of gotten a bad rep, which is unfortunate. But like you said, there's so many, like you could go to an AA group like every day for a different one for a week. And like maybe one of them you feel comfortable in, because some of them, just the way that they're run, is not the best fit for you. And
yeah,
like I know when I went to treatment, I was lucky because they taught us, like, because I was there with people who did pills, people who did H, people who were alcoholics, and so they taught us like a lot of different steps, like not just like the common ones with AA and stuff, which I think is really important, because not, it's kind of like when you go to school, some people are visual learners, some people aren't, and it's the same thing with addiction. Some people will venture more towards going down like an AA or an NA type of recovery, where other people need a
right.
different type of help. And so there's tons and tons of different ways that you can get that. But unfortunately, like some people are saying in chat, it is really hard. Like for if I hadn't had my mom to personally help me, I would not have been able to do what I did, because
Yeah,
I own a home and my ex wasn't working, and so I had all the bills, that you have when you're a homeowner and basically a single mom, and trying to take care of a spouse at the same time too. And I'm thankful that I had that help, because I don't know what I would have done. And it's really, really unfortunate that they can't create more programs, because there is such a huge problem with people. And again, like people need more than just a detox, because anybody can detox, but it's what they get after the detox that's going to keep them from going back down that road. Because yeah, okay, great, a medical detox, that's great, that helps you. Like if anybody can detox medically, that's the best way to do it. I mean, at least I felt like that was the best way for me personally, because I didn't want to feel super shitty. And you still feel like shit even when you're getting medically detoxed. It doesn't take away everything, but then once you learn what your triggers are or what your trauma is, then that's what helps you to find different avenues and different ways to cope with stuff after the
yeah.
fact, so that you don't want to pick up that, pill bottle or that drink or whatever it might be. And I just think it's a shame that
Anybody
so many people just
has
go
ever
ahead.
watched Nurse? Is it?
You broke up. What did you say?
If anybody has ever watched that show, Nurse Betty? What the hell was the name of that damn show? She was a nurse and she was addicted to
Oh, Nurse
Nurse
Jackie.
Jackie.
Yeah.
That show, I felt that show. That was used to be one of my favorite shows to watch,
Yeah.
because yes, that show literally to a T was, well, she got, she really lost control, you know what I mean? But that show, I connected with that show so much, just because that's how I was as a mother. I felt like I was the best mother ever when I had my pills.
Yep.
You know, I felt like there was nothing that I couldn't do. And when I didn't, I was like gone, the worst mother ever, just walking around like a zombie, going from day to day. So that show I really always related to. And when people have asked me to describe, you know, my addiction in any way, shape, or form, I don't know why I wasn't thinking about it, but Nurse Jackie is something that really pops out to me because that's how she was. She was super mom when she had her pills.
Yeah.
And when she didn't, she was a completely different person.
Yeah. It's functioning.
Yeah.
Functioning addiction is really scary because people literally, you were saying this earlier, like there are some people that literally with drugs or alcohol function almost better with it than without it. So when they're
Right.
not
Oh yeah.
on it, they can't function because all those emotions, all that trauma, all those memories, everything comes into their head and they can't mask that anymore. So they can't function.
Right.
So yeah, that's another side of addiction that people don't necessarily think about often. They just think about the people stumbling around on the streets and
Right. That's what people,
Well, yeah.
it's a big
and
misconception.
right. And
Yeah.
what people don't realize too is that a lot of people are like my father was functioning for years and wasn't anymore. And so that's another thing that happens is that people don't stop if they're functioning. They think they have control over it. And then the next thing you know, they're on the streets. They can't
Yeah.
function anymore and they're more addicted than they ever have been.
And that's what I'm saying. I had to stop myself from I got to
Yeah.
that point because I wasn't going to let myself get to that point. But there are some people who it's not about letting themselves, they just lose control.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's such a it's such a pandemic
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
addiction. Like you guys, if you heard me read the statistics, that is crazy. That's crazy. And that F word is getting really, really bad. It's getting to a point, and I may cover this, to where they are putting fentanyl in marijuana.
Yep. And also what's really scary too is like how people are actually like creating pills that literally look like a regular, just like a perk, like a
And
perk 5, and
sorry,
they're stamping it and everything. And
I'm
it
whispering.
literally, that's okay. And it's like, so like somebody on the street thinks that they're just going and buying some perk 5s from somebody. They have no idea that it's just been made in somebody's house and it's actually not
Exactly.
that, and it's or it's F, like.
Yep.
I actually know of 3 ex-coworkers who I didn't even know that they did drugs when I was working with them. But 3 ex-coworkers who within this year have died because of doing cocaine laced with F.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
didn't realize that F was in it. And yeah, so 3 people I know personally, and it's been like, was all over the news and stuff because there was obviously much more than just the people I knew who passed away from it. But Tia, I don't know if you saw in the chat, I had almost the same situation with, so my mom was on F patches for years. And she left them in the car once. And I like yelled at her. I was like, Mom, people would break in to get those. And she had no idea that people were starting like at that point to use them on the streets and like without a prescription. And she had no idea. I was like, yeah, like you're on a heavy duty drug. Like we started hearing about it in the news and she had been on them for years. And they ended up taking her off them. And I cannot believe that she didn't get any kind of addiction from it, like whatsoever. She just stopped doing them. She asked the
I had
doctor.
no idea how serious that was. When she told me that, I'm like, it's my mom. She's like, it doesn't matter. She's like, this is a serious thing that you have this in your car. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, thank you for telling me. And yes, we are going to wrap this up, but we will talk about this again. Menu Frog, I will read off the statistics before we end this. What I will say is it's not easy. It's not easy for me. It wasn't easy for me to talk about this. I was very nervous to talk about this. People are going to judge me for talking about this. But that's okay. I'm okay with that.
None of us are, babe.
Yeah, I
And
think
and
it's
the
something,
ones
you
who
know, that
are
really
going to judge you aren't worth
You know.
any of our time of day.
right, and it's something, it's so important to talk about too, because again, it's like I personally feel that like a lot of the people that do use don't want to use. Like they
Yeah.
just don't. They just want to, like, if they could snap their fingers and be off of it and not have to go through the withdrawal, a lot of them would do it because the withdrawals are so horrible from so many of these things, especially now with like
Yeah.
putting the F and stuff. It's like it makes
Most
it.
people do it because just so they can not have withdrawals.
Exactly, because you get to that point where it's really, it's, you're not chasing that high anymore. You're just chasing not to withdraw,
Not to be
and people
sober.
don't realize that. Yep.
And I know that there are more people who want to share their stories. Menu Frog, I've seen you have a story, I think, of a loved one. And my condolences to you. I definitely seen you talking about that in the chat. I know Rose Gold, I've seen you talking about that. I do want more people. I want to open up the panel for more people to talk about their story, if you would like. But like I said,
Absolutely.
it's not easy for anybody to talk about. But I really truly believe that you could be that person to make an impact on someone's life. You're opening yourself up to feel vulnerable, and I get that. But in the same sense, what if you help someone
Mm-hmm.
just by talking about it? There
Well,
is someone out there who was my age, who has a sick mother, who's holding everything inside. The same situation as me. It only takes just for me to help one person, and that is what matters to me.
Yep.
And it's not easy to talk about this, but I want to talk about these things. Thank you, Melissa Brown. It This pandemic, and it's just getting worse. It really is, and I want to dive deeper into how this started,
mm-hmm.
who started it,
Mm-hmm.
and I have my own. Uh, I guess
Cough,
you
pharmaceuticals, cough.
yes, theories, the
Yeah.
conspiracy theories, whatever you want to call it, about why this is a pandemic. Because what we do have to keep in mind is because of addiction, um, hospitals, doctors, they are making so much money.
Yep.
Police officers, they are making so much money.
Yep.
And
Rehabs.
money makes the world.
Rehabs.
Yep, rehabs. They're making so much money.
Cash cow.
Money makes the world go round, you guys. And there is a deeper issue that's never addressed. And we will talk about that.
Yeah, and Tia, I want to drop down so you can close this out, but
Yeah,
I
was just gonna say the same
I
thing.
just want to say that I am so proud of you, Tia, and I'm so proud of you, Goose, and I'm so proud of everybody in the chat who is in recovery or have family members in recovery. I'm proud of them too. I think one of the most important things about talking about this is we brought the word up earlier, and it's the word that makes people relapse. It's the word that keeps people in addiction. It's shame. And so talking about this is breaking the stigma, and hopefully it's making people who feel ashamed feel that they have nothing to be ashamed about anymore. What has happened to you, if you're an addict, is not your fault, and you should not feel shame.
And it doesn't define you.
It does not define you,
Exactly.
and you are so strong in recovery. So those are my parting words, but I love you all, and thank you so much, Tia, for doing this. And I will be down in chat while you close out. Okay.
Thank you so much, both of you. Goose, I've spoken with you before. We share similar stories, and there's a deeper story within our stories. I remember that. And I will be talking about this again, and I hope you'll come up on panel again.
I will. And I just wanted to say thank you too for sharing the stuff with your mom, because I can't I can't imagine what that was like. And I know now, like with my mom, being diagnosed with dementia, that you'll be like somebody that I really lean on a lot, because it is
Absolutely.
really hard
Always
to go
here.
through that, and
I did not
especially when,
do that.
yeah.
I'm
So
so sorry.
that's why I've been a little bit MIA and just kind of away a little bit. I've been
Yeah.
trying to get her as much help as possible, but obviously with something like that, there isn't a whole lot that you can do, except just try to
Well,
be there. So
we're here for you, Goose. I'm here for you. If you ever need me, you know my number. You can call me anytime.
yeah, I will. But thank you so much for doing this live.
Thank
It's
you so
something
much
that
for
needs to
coming
be
up.
talked about. So I'll
I
see you
will
later.
be talking about it again. Love you, girl.
You too. Bye.
Bye. All right, you guys. This ended up being longer than I expected for it to go. Like I said, this wasn't easy to talk about, but I'm so happy that I did. This means so much to me, you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being so just amazing. You guys are amazing. You always make me feel so comfortable. And I always feel like I'm not being judged in any way, shape, or form. And I thank you guys so much for that, because when you talk about these kinds of things, it's not easy. And we will continue this conversation. I'm not trying to turn it into like, AA meeting where, I'm not trying to do that, but I do um, would love to hear other people's story, whether it's a story of where you are still struggling, or it's a story of, you've been sober for 10 years. Whatever it is, I want to hear about your journey, because addiction is real and it is a disease. And if you are watching someone that you love go through this, the one thing I can tell you is that I know it's hard. I know the hardest thing is not being there for someone you love when they need you. However, when someone you love is suffering from addiction, you have to understand that they don't care about you at that point. Of course, deep down, they love you, but that's not what they care about. All they care about is getting their next fix. So the more you, it's so hard to say, don't enable. I know it's hard, but please understand that if you enable in any way, shape, or form, you are the one who will ultimately end this person's life, help this person in their life. Enabling is a very complex, I understand, especially when it comes to somebody you love. But if you don't stop enabling, because that is the number one problem, in my opinion. I don't care what nobody says. In my opinion, enabling is the one thing and the one reason as to why a lot of addicts don't survive. So I really, really feel like, as hard as it is, just know that enabling is not going to help a person who suffers from addiction. Unless you see them helping themselves, you have to do whatever you can to help without handing it and putting it in their hand, putting money into their hand. Like if they want to go grocery shopping and they say they have no food, okay? Because addicts are very manipulative, and they are literally the most convincing scam artist that you will ever meet in your mother effing life. And I'm not even playing. I say, and I get this from Tommy Boy, is um, an addict can sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. And I got that from Tommy Boy, but it's true. They can convince anybody of anything if they want to. It really is true. And if you are handing that person money, instead of handing them money when they say, I don't have any food, you know what you can say? I'll take you to the grocery store and buy you some food. Or if they say, I don't know, what if they say, I have to go get something, diapers? I don't know, whatever the situation is. There are ways you can do things for them without putting money into their hands. Because I'm telling you, enabling is the number one thing in my opinion. So that pretty much contributes to the problem and creates an even bigger problem. And it just gets worse and worse and worse the more you continue to enable. And it's the hardest thing to do, I know. But trust and believe. It may be the hardest thing to do, but it's probably one of the best things you'll do in your life. But addicts also need to know who they were as an addict to. Active addiction is not something they should hold on to and be ashamed of. Absolutely. Nobody should be ashamed of their life, their past. Nobody should be ashamed of the things that they've done, because at the end of the day, everything that you've done and everything that you have overcome made you who you are today. You know, me being bullied is what made me who I am today. Me being screwed over by so many friends is what made me who I am today. Me watching my mother suffer through cancer is what made me who I am today. Me going through addiction is what made me. Every moment in your life, every single moment creates who you are. It is a part of you. There's no reason to be ashamed of things that you've done in the past, because at the end of the day, you're still here. So you're doing something right. You're still here. You're still fighting. Every moment in your life, every traumatic thing in your life that you have been through, everything is who you are today. So don't ever be ashamed of being an addict or anything that you've done in the past, as long as it's not like, predator or things like that. But I'm saying, don't ever be ashamed of being an addict, because to me, it was never something, I was never ashamed of it. I was always more, because words hurt. I feel like I was more afraid of being judged, because people are so judgmental and people will use things over your head. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you're a creator, people will use things over your head. Like literally, I'm sure within the next couple of weeks, somebody's going to say, that's why she used to be an addict and take pills from her mother. I'm just telling you, that's what people do. People use things that you may not be so proud of. They use that to attack you, to bully you. At your most vulnerable times, that's when people try to bully you. So it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about that, because I don't care as long as I'm helping somebody, right? I want this to be a platform where people feel comfortable to talk about things, and to be able to talk about things without being judged and without people looking down on them for a decision that they made in their past. You know what I mean? We all have consequences for our actions, but at the end of the day, use your story to help someone else. And it may be hard sometimes, but I'm telling you, do things. That's what life is all about. That's how I feel. I feel life is all about empowering other people, especially women. Especially women, because I don't care what nobody says. I'm not saying that men don't have it hard or anything like that, but we as women have it hard. Either we're too big or we're too skinny or we're not skinny enough, our butt's not big enough, our boobs aren't big enough, our skin's not clear enough, our hair's not right. Everything women are constantly put on this, huge panel of everyone just judging you and pointing at you. You know what I'm saying? It's been like that, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. So that is why I choose to talk about things that may be a little bit uncomfortable, because hopefully it helps somebody else, or I inspire somebody else to maybe even tell their story. But don't ever be afraid of the things that you have been through in the past, because at the end of the day, it's what made you who you are today. Everything you go through in life is for a reason. And some people may not even know what that reason is yet, but you will. You will. I love y'all. You guys are amazing. Thank you to my amazing mods for being so patient and kind and dropping the links and hanging in here with me for this long. Thank you to all of you. Rose Gold, you're amazing. Everyone in chat, Jennifer K, I love you guys when you come in here. It's all love. It's all love, you guys. I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the super chats. It means a lot to me, and it truly, truly does help, and it goes back into the channel. Please make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. Or you can dislike, whatever. It's all interaction anyway. And thank you for your support. You guys are amazing. And I'm not sure if I'll be live tomorrow, most likely. But if not tomorrow, for sure, Monday. You guys have an amazing night. And thank you so much for being here and being so supportive. Okay? Go get some sleep or whatever. I'm not going to sleep. So, but also just to let you guys know, my email is on my channel, and all of my social media platforms is on my channel. If there's ever anything you need to reach out to me about, I'm always here. Okay. Good night, everyone. And I love you guys so much. Bye.